We continue reading in Psalm 86 and verse 14, where the psalmist writes, O God, arrogant men have risen up against me, and a band of violent men have sought my life, and they have not set you before them. The psalmist begins his appeal by stating the known enemies of God, proud men who have risen up against him in persecution. We experience that in our own society today, don't we? The most severe persecutions of the church are from those arrogant and domineering people who refuse to humble themselves, submitting to their Creator. These haughty egotists would not have molested God's servant if they themselves respected and feared the God of David. People who are self-possessed, grandiose, and pompous do not usually regard the welfare rights of others unless it is to their own personal gain. Verse 15 of 86 reads, But you, O Lord, are a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, abundant in loving kindness and truth. David was perceptive about God's patience, able to delay his anger and not act out of passion evoked by resentment. The words rendered slow or long-suffering means that there was and would be a delay in his anger, that it was not soon animated, that he did not act from passion or sudden resentment, that he endured the conduct of sinners long without being suddenly aroused to wrath. David understood that God's nature is one of gentleness and loving kindness. Therefore, on that basis, he pleads his case before the Lord. Thoughtlessly, many choose to ignore the commands of God and therefore are unable to grasp the principles presented within the law. This was not the case with David, nor should it be with you and me, for the law tells us about God's compassion. As the law was being presented to Moses, we read in Exodus 34:6. Then the Lord passed in front of him and proclaimed, Yahweh, Yahweh, is a compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger and rich in faithful love and truth. We find this in the law itself. Numbers 14:18 through 19 reads, The Lord is slow to anger and rich in faithful love, forgiving wrongdoing and rebellion, but he will not leave the guilty unpunished. Which of God's commands in Exodus 22 through 17 do we find objectionable, if any, or does not reveal the love of our Creator? The Lord our God brought us out of the place of slavery to sin. Therefore do not have any other gods besides me. Do not make an idol for yourself. You must not bow down to them or worship them, showing faithful love to those who love me and keep my commands. Do not misuse the name of the Lord your God. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. You are to labor 6 days and do all of your work. The seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord. He declares it holy. Honor your father and your mother. Do not murder. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. Do not give false testimony against your neighbor. And do not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. God is our provider.